Old School Bodybuilding Clothing Company. If it's been 3.5 hours since you last ate protein and now you're starting to freak out, you are old school. If watching someone sit on a hammer machine for 5 minutes between sets playing with their phone pisses you off, you are definitely old school. OSBBC.com for the hardest training athletes.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. Welcome back to Live With, brought to you by Species Nutrition. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today's guest is a really good one. I love great stories, and I love great success stories, and I love great success stories of people who actually have gone on to make themselves better than they were, educate themselves, be successful in our sport. And the guy I'm talking about won his class at Nationals. He's an IFBB pro in Classic Physique, and it's my pleasure to welcome Jared Feather to the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
I love your last name. As a matter of fact, when I was taking notes, I actually made a feather on my little cheat sheet here just because I thought that. Was that your nickname? What did they call you? Like the Birdman, like growing up or something like that?
Oh my God. People usually refer to me by my last name.
Feather? Yeah. I like it. It's unique, you know. Now, you had a very interesting upbringing. Not many people can say that they grew up the way you did and then succeeded and reached levels that they did later in life. And probably your upbringing had something to do with how successful you are today. But give us a little background, of what life was like early on for you, and then how you obviously got introduced to weight training.
Sure. So I grew up pretty poor. When I say poor, I mean like actually poor, family. My mom was on disability.
Not like poor where you couldn't have video games, but like poor where you were looking for food. Poor, right?
For sure. My mom was on disability, and she had like a tumor that was operated on multiple times. She really couldn't lift much or do anything, so that kept her out of the workforce. And then, I think it's important to mention there were 7 of you too, right? Brothers and sisters. Right. So I grew up. There were 7 of us. In low-income housing most of the time, so that included like apartments that were like government assisted and
like
Section 8 parks,
Section 8 type stuff, right?
Yes, exactly. All that fun stuff, all that jazz. So I grew up
in Missouri, of all places too.
In Missouri, in a small town in Missouri.
Yeah. What was the population of that town?
Man, so I actually lived outside of city limits in the town called Curryville, which there were 200 people.
Wow. What was your school like growing up? Was it small?
Yeah, so like my class in school was 900 people. Or sorry, 900 in the whole high school.
Right.
I think my class had 99, which is like one of the largest classes.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not too small,
Yeah. It's not like it was class 3 football.
Oh wow. It's funny because you were in a small town, but everyone was kids. It seemed like in the whole town.
100%, man. It's a lot of drugs and alcohol and shit like that.
Now was that because like there was so much poverty that people just were drinking a lot just to kind of like forget what their living conditions were and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was kind of just one of those small town feels where it's like everybody's a farmer or they're not, and whoever's a farmer has money, and if you're not a farmer, you don't really have too much money,
right?
And nobody really gets out of there. That kind of one of those just small town feel where nobody really leaves, and they all reminisce on the old high school football days.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's like a movie almost. Now, what do people do for a living there if you're not a farmer?
Right, farmer or work in the town, I guess. It's right. Like. So it was really cliquey. So that's like with like the assistance. So like money, if we were going to get money, we had to go through this place called NECAC. But like I think people just kind of knew the lasting feather was notoriously bad for like drugs
so
and
you
stuff.
guys had a bad reputation in your family as being
because like my uncle, one of my uncles like owned a meth lab.
Oh wow! All right, so
Yeah,
then
it was some shit, man. It was just crazy growing
it's
up.
like it really is a movie. And that's when you told me this originally, I couldn't even believe it. It sounds like you're watching a movie when you describe your early childhood. You know.
Yeah. It was interesting. I learned a lot from it.
Were you like not like did you do whatever you wanted? Were you like there was no supervision around, or did you have strict
Yeah,
supervision?
yeah. Like I mentioned before we started this, well, I was a kid, and instead of getting into a bunch of shit, I just kind of at like 13, I was trying to get jobs, and I was like, if I couldn't get a job, I was stealing from stores so I could try to get food for my siblings and
Yeah,
my mom,
that's
making sure my siblings got up for school if my mom was really sick, shit like that. It was, taking care of people from a young age. I guess I got a little bit of savior complex from that.
yeah. Well, that's a tough childhood to grow up in because a lot of people would go the opposite direction and become drug addicts or criminals.
Yeah, and a lot of them did, man. Like my sister, one of them's, she's addicted to meth, and I got aunts, uncles in prison or dead or just all kinds of stuff, man. Cousins who commit suicide all the time. There's so many people in my family. It's just like I hear about somebody dying every other month.
Wow. What do you accredit saving yourself? Was it your brain? Was it your intelligence that saved you? Was it the fact that you just didn't want to be like everyone else? Or
yeah, I mean, there's obviously a large genetic component there. I got a fortunate enough to have a decent IQ, I suppose. But my mom was although she was sick, she was very, very supportive and very pushed me in the right direction. And, anytime I would do anything that seemed good, even if it was like bringing food home that was not a really good reason, stealing stuff.
Right,
But she was always just very thankful, and I like to see that, like, my family happy. And I just kind of realized one day being around here is not going to bring them much, and if I can get these degrees and move on and get a really good job, then I can send a lot of money home and help them, and they don't have to live like this again. So that's what I do. Honestly, I'm fortunate enough to work for the company I work for, and it's it pays very well, and I can send a bunch of my salary home and still help them out.
Is that what you're doing? I didn't ask you that earlier. You sending a lot of money home to them?
Oh yeah, like I don't know, a third of my salary maybe.
Oh wow. Now, do you think that they use it for responsible,
Yeah, so at first I was worried. So in university I had 3 jobs,
right?
And I was taking out all my loans, and I was sending a bunch of money home still. I would just make sure the loans went to what they were supposed to.
Right.
And I think that I probably got frustrated with my mom a couple times, and I was like, "Listen, don't be buying cigarettes with this money. This is for bills."
Right. You put food, you get food for the kids, and with this money.
Exactly. She made some poopy decisions, but she made some good decisions.
Right.
Like you can't be buying cigarettes when we don't have food.
Right.
You can't be doing shit like that. But I love her to death, and she learns from her mistakes, fortunately. So now I just send it home, and I'm like, you know what to do. Like, here you go.
So when you go see a guidance counselor in school, and they obviously must know what's going on at home. I don't know if you told them or not, but these people are smart. They know what's going on. How do they advise you to do they tell you, hey, look, you got his brain, you can get out of this, you can get into college, you can make yourself better than what, the situation you're in right now is?
Yeah, so honestly, a lot of the teachers were just, I'd walk into the classroom and they just fucking hated me right away because my last name was Feather. Right. Like I said, like a small town cliquey feel. Even the teachers were that way.
Wow, that's great.
But I was fortunate enough to have a football coach who he got me my first established job working for Pepsi when I was like 16.
Wow.
And he was an asshole to me too, but I was also an asshole on the football field and just like in practice. And I had no appeal to authority. I was like, don't tell me what to do, because I didn't have that at home.
Right, you had no one telling you what to do.
Boss me around.
Sure.
Me and my stepfather had a fallout when I was like 10, so I was like, F you, F like a male authority.
Sure.
So I was a shithead sometimes, but it wasn't as bad as the treatment I got, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I had a couple of good teachers. One was my language arts teacher. She saw a lot of good in me, and then my football coach, he was like, listen, you can go to college and this and that, and helped me with the recruitment process. But I didn't go to college for football or anything. But
so how did you do well in class, given the fact that you had this like big chip on your shoulder, and the fact that you were kind of like everyone was working against you because of your last name?
Yeah, it was tough, man. Fortunately, things just kind of made sense, and I knew from a young age, like, I wanted to be a little more educated, and paying attention in class obviously is just how you do that.
Sure.
I never brought homework home. So if I didn't get it done in class, or what was called, because we had a 4-block period rotating schedule.
Right.
So one of those things around lunchtime, we had what was called cat time. It was like a study hall for everybody. So if I didn't get it done in there, I didn't bring it home. I just didn't do it.
Wow. So you actually studied during study hall, unlike what everyone else was probably doing,
I probably not all the time, but I tried to.
Yeah.
Or just do my homework really fast. So it was, A, B average, probably like a 3.5 or something. And I did really well.
That's impressive. So you must have had some innate intelligence that was, guiding you at that point.
No, exactly. Like I said, things just kind of made sense. And especially the sciences, they made a lot of sense. And when I learned I could apply that to bodybuilding, I was really enthralled.
Of course. Were these teachers like surprised that you were doing so well? Did they think like maybe you were cheating or something like that? Or
probably. I'm sure I got accused of that a couple times.
Really?
Especially in middle school. I had one teacher that he was a history teacher. He just hated me. And when I would walk in, he'd be like, "Leave, I don't want to look at your face today."
Wow, that's great. Only in a small town that would happen. They would,
100%.
If that would happen in Long Island, that guy would have been strung up by the parents, and fired for sure.
I had like an agriculture teacher who was the same way. Like I hated agriculture because it was my whole town was agriculture.
Right.
Everybody talked about agriculture. I get it. We do cows and corn. I know.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, would that frustrate you when people would like accuse you of doing things like maybe cheating or not? Because here you are, you're really studying, and you're actually, for some reason, your brain is functioning at a higher level than everyone else's, and you're doing well. And then people like almost like not even, instead of saying good job, they're actually like they're thinking like maybe you're doing something underhanded, so to speak.
Yeah, like I said, I think it only happened a couple of times, but it's definitely like it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It's like, listen, like I wasn't cheating, and it's really unfortunate you think that I was, but do whatever you got to do.
Yeah, prove it. Exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah. No, all in all, like it was a fine place to grow up in if you weren't super poor.
You weren't poor, right? Exactly.
Yeah, it was like a small town feel. Everybody kind of knew each other. Yeah. For the most part, they all got along, and it was a nice place. It was just you gotta not be poor, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. Now, when you're applying to college at this point, did you take like the SATs and do all that stuff?
Yeah, so I was convinced to take the ACT when I was like a junior, and then after that, I never took it again because I honestly, even at that point, I had no idea I was going to go to university.
Right.
So I took it. I got like a 25 or something.
What?
And then
is that good? I don't even remember anymore what that is.
31.
Oh, yeah, it's very good.
It's perfect score.
Yeah.
It was fine. I mean, it's not amazing, but like I said, I was a first semester junior, and I didn't care too much about it.
Probably didn't even prepare for it. Yeah.
Did well, So I was like, that's fine. I'll apply to wherever I apply, and if some college in Missouri accepts me, because I didn't want to leave my family altogether.
Right.
Then I'll go, and then so a university like. 2 universities accepted me. I applied to 2 universities that both accepted me, but it wasn't really hard to get into. You know what I mean?
Did that save you? Did you leave home at that point when you got into college?
Yeah, so it was a 3-hour drive. So I was making a lot of trips back and forth. Like I'd hear my mom was having some sort of health issue. I'd have to drive home.
Oh my God!
I drove home 2 times to bail my sister out of jail.
You couldn't even focus and enjoy college. You had to like worry about what's going on in the home front.
Yeah, 100%. I think I only partied twice in college.
Wow. Well, that's probably why you did so well.
Yeah.
Now, when you got to college, did you like say, "Hey, I'm in my element now"? Because no one knew who you were, obviously. There, it's like you kind of had a fresh slate, right?
Yeah, it was really cool, man. I did the freshman being a dorm type of thing, and it was cool to meet because you're in Missouri and you're in a small town. It's just like white people, rednecks, everybody likes the trucks and cars and this and that. And it's like, I just was never like that. I didn't care about cars.
Right.
It never brought me any interest.
Well, you had no money. So, I mean, it's when you have no money, you don't care about cars.
Right. Exactly. So I got there and there were people from all walks of life. And I was like, holy crap, this is crazy. Like it was the first time I really saw diversity. I loved it. So I ended up being a CA, RA. You know what that is?
Yep. At the dorm.
Yeah. So I was a resident assistant for the remainder of my college. I got to meet a bunch of cool people. I got to help other people who were in similar circumstances as me. Like, here are the means that can help you, and here's how you do student loans and blah, blah. It was really cool, man. I loved helping. Like I said, I probably got a big ass savior complex from my childhood and working so damn hard.
I can't even imagine why.
Yeah.
So you're in college now. You're in your element. Did you find that you intellectually, thrived there much better than say at high school?
Yeah, I definitely. So in high school, I'm not going to say that I studied a ton, and I honestly because I didn't think that college or anything was my calling, and I thought I was going to be in Bowling Green working as hard as possible just to make my family money. I didn't try in school a lot. Things just kind of made sense. But when I got to college, I was like, okay, this is the real deal. And I saw how much money I was putting into it. And I was like, if I don't get A's all the time, I'm going to be real pissed.
Right.
So I was studying my ass off, man.
My father did the same thing. My father, came from a bricklayer's family, and he in the Bronx, New York, and no one went to college ever. He was like the only one, and he had someone, and he didn't even go to college right after. And a priest had talked to him and said, "Why don't you go? You're smart. I think that you can do well." And he was so scared that his father would stop paying his tuition that he, like you, studied his ass off and got all A's because he was afraid that they were going to rescind it, or something like that.
No, 100%, yeah. So, and by that time I was probably senior year of high school. I was already trying to apply as much science as I knew to training for hypertrophy and nutrition and things like that.
Now, how did you get introduced to bodybuilding? Because you said you played football in college, and then in high school.
No, in high school.
And then I know you said your mom had introduced you a little bit to the gym and stuff like that.
Yeah, when I was a young kid, my mom would do Taibo, and it looked fun, so I'd join her and I'd punch the air with her. And then that was before she got in pretty shit condition.
Yeah. Were you naturally strong?
A little better now. Do what?
Were you naturally strong?
Yeah, I had a bench record and stuff by the time I was a senior.
Oh wow, what was that?
I think I was 165 and I did 350.
Oh wow, so you're naturally strong. That's crazy. It's crazy.
I never really squatted in high school or anything, but yeah. So basically, I went to I went to school or after school weights one day just because my mom was in a pretty shitty. She was on a new medication that she was having a ton of seizures, and this was actually when we lived in town in one of those assisted housing
Section 8
places.
housing, yeah.
It was right down the road from the school, so I would go to after school weights. It was for 3 hours with my friends.
Oh wow.
And then it got to the point where I was the end of junior year to senior year, I would go 2 hours in the morning. I was a TA for a weights class. I had a weights class, which combined was another 3 hours. I would go after school for 3 hours.
So you were obsessed.
Then I would go home and do P90X for no reason.
Wow. So you were sold at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Fortunately, I got smarter and started learning a lot about. So I read a bunch of sports science books. I don't know if you know Tudor Bompa.
What's the name of the book?
Sports Periodization.
Yes, yeah. I've seen that book. Yeah, I haven't read it.
Yeah. He wrote a whole bunch of books. Actually, one of my colleagues got to write a book with him recently, which is amazing because that's where I started.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're going to get to that because you have a very good, you have a master's degree. Now, when you went to college, did you think, hey, I'm just going to get through college and then get a job? Or did you think, you know what, I like this whole academic type of situation. I'd like to stay here and get higher degrees. When did you get to that point mentally?
The higher degree thing really wasn't until I graduated with undergrad. But before that, man, I just wanted to do my best every single semester and focused on that and didn't, even with high school going into college, didn't think much about college going into the workforce. I was just college. I was I'm going to do really well. I'm going to hopefully impress the right people.
Right.
And I'm just going to show them that my work ethic is great and I'm worth it. So I wanted to do well to boost my resume and make sure that if I did have to go into the workforce that hey, look, this guy actually tries, he gives a shit.
Right.
And so it was just investing to me. It was just large investments and kind of insert mindfulness and just be living in the moment. And there you go. I was just living in the moment and trying to help my family when I could. And every day was kind of just I hope I don't get bad news today so I can actually focus on school.
Right. Yeah. No, I hear. It's interesting, but a lot of people, think that they have to have a game plan. I don't want to spend too much on college because then I'm going to have a lump. Go to college and learn as much as you can.
Absolutely.
Because when you're young, it doesn't matter. Who cares how many loans you have or whatever? Get that education because you can never regain it later in life. You gotta get it into your brain early on so that it becomes almost like second nature to you. And then you never know where it will go. Like with you didn't know the job you have now, which we'll get to in a minute. You could never have predicted that job in a million years. That somehow your bodybuilding, goals and your intellectual goals would somehow mesh with each other and get you a good paying job. I mean, it's almost unheard of, right?
Yeah, I never thought of that. I thought personal training at some really nice facility, what are the ones on the coast called?
Which ones? What are you talking about?
The really fancy ones on the coast that pay like 6 figures. What are they called?
I don't know. I'd like to know what those are because a lot of people.
Yeah, I can't remember. Just some fancy personal training job.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, if you own your own gym too, obviously, if you like a personal training gym, you can make money. But you have like a great job. And we're gonna talk about that in a minute. But so you're kind of getting interested in working out. Now, you did your first show in men's physique. What year was that?
So it was actually. Somebody probably sent you the link to like J Cutler TV or something. I assume that's how, because you reached out right after that.
Yep.
So it was actually the same year Mark won the Mr. O in men's physique.
Oh, Mark Anthony.
Funny that we actually linked up. So 13, I believe.
Were you in Vegas at that point?
No, I was still in Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just got to Vegas. That was 2013. I got to Vegas in 2020.
Okay. Because I know Mark lives there, so I just thought maybe that's how you guys.
Yeah. He reached out to me after nationals. We didn't know each other until.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. All right, cool. So anyway, so you 13, you do the men's physique show, and how did you do at that show?
I got first.
Okay, so obviously you saw you had potential, at that point.
Yeah, I like 15 guys. I got first. I was powerlifting before that. I don't think I ever lost that either. It was just like
were you competing in powerlifting?
No.
Were you competing in powerlifting?
Yeah, I only did 1 or 2 meets, and I was prepping for a third, which I was actually totaling elite at 181, and I ended up tearing my ACL doing a breast cancer fundraiser called Big Pink Volleyball. I kind of just jumped in the air, and I landed and just...
That's how it always happens. I always tell people, once you start bodybuilding, don't do anything else athletically, because your body 100%. Is not meant to do anything else athletically.
And that's why I didn't do sports in college. I was like, I got some offers, and I was like, I don't want to get hurt, man. I'm tired of the concussions, and I had like a crushed disc and separated vertebrae in my neck here.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm good.
Yeah. There was a guy, Sam Abdul, who was a phenomenal bodybuilder. He won the Eastern USA Bodybuilding Championships in the late 90s. I was friends with him. And he went on vacation after that to the Bahamas. And he played, same thing, volleyball. And he somehow fell and hurt his shoulder, and that was the end of his career, ended his bodybuilding career. He could have been an Olympian level pro. That's how good this guy was. Oh, and it ended his career. So you don't do anything outside of bodybuilding once you're in bodybuilding. So men's physique. I
wouldn't at this size, especially.
Men's physique obviously was because you really said earlier on you didn't really train your legs very much. When did you say, hey, you know what? I want to get into like posing and doing real bodybuilding?
Yeah, I think I did 2 men's physique shows, and then I was just like, I want to give bodybuilding a shot, see how I can do. Then there were a lot of like natural pro bodybuilders, and I was just looking at their physiques, and I was like, man, I look better than that guy.
Right.
So I was like, all right, let me give it a shot. So I competed a few times in natural circuits for bodybuilding, and then I was getting like second or first in my class, and then losing the overall, missing a pro card, or like a spot. And it just kept leaving a bad taste in my mouth. So I was like, all right, let's go. Time to put it all in.
Right. Now, did you, the obviously the challenge as a natural bodybuilder is you really have to have your training and diet and supplements on point, because there's no other tools basically to use to overcompensate for making mistakes. And I always say it's always good to start, and we talked about this before the show, as a natural bodybuilder, because you really learn the core precepts of what you need to be the best that you can be. Then you throw drugs on top of that, things just work better. Obviously, we know that. That goes without saying. But if you can get the other stuff down pat first, you obviously have a dramatic advantage. I was a natural bodybuilder for 3 or 4 years, prior to ever using anything, and I think that really helped. When I started something, my body responded really well. What did you learn from school versus in the, so to speak, in the trenches, in the gyms? Right. Where did you garnish most of your knowledge in terms of training and eating properly?
Well, I mean, most of it was, education based. Like I said, I was getting into sports science really heavily, and I realized that people weren't, every sport and every sort of weightlifting niche applies sports periodization to the actual training process itself.